T Navigator being the world's fastest reservoir simulator, it became an advantage in terms of the speed. We collaborate with NVIDIA that allows T Navigator to be run on GPU CUDA core. That become even faster.
皆さんこんにちは。グリーンタレントハブの井口です。今回はロックフローダイナミクスのデリックさんにお越しいただきました。Thank you for joining this interview.
Thank you. こんにちは。
こんにちは。今ですね、私はバンコクにおりまして、フューチャーエナジーアジアという日本でいうエキスポみたいなそういう大きな展示会がありまして、そこに参加しています。ロックフローダイナミクスさんはその展示会に出展をされていてですね、革新的なソリューションを提供していて非常に面白いなと思いまして、今回対談に至りました。How's your condition in this event? Your solution is very sophisticated. How's your reaction from the audience?
So we are here in the Future Energy Asia for 3 days. In Bangkok. So just to start with, my name is Derric. I'm a business development manager for Southeast Asia. So basically we sell solution in the upstream industry where a company that wants to deal with recovery of oil and gas, that deal with the carbon capture and storage, which today is the main team in that Future Energy Asia. So my responsibility and my team here is to make sure that this company in the upstream or even in the downstream or even the industry, they are not in the area that we are used to be. We are comfortable, in this upstream industry to know what T Navigator is. So this is our flagship product that is sold by Rockflow Dynamics. So the condition here is fantastic because we have so many interests for the last 2 days, yesterday and 2 days, and hopefully for tomorrow, that there are a lot of people coming to us and ask what is the reservoir simulations, what is the reservoir modeling, what is the tool that you use for carbon capture storage. So I think my role here is very important for everyone in the industry in general, in the energy, not only just in oil and gas, but in electricity as well, utility, in the whole sustainable and decarbonization industry, to know that reservoir simulation and reservoir modeling tool that are provided by T Navigator, it is a main tool, it's very important assessment tool, risk assessment tool to be used by PTEP, by Petronas and many other operators. It is essential for them to have this application for risk assessment. So without that, CCS project that is done by this company will not be successful. So I can definitely dive deeper into it if you go through this interview later on.
Thank you. Rockflow Dynamics is kind of an enabler for CCS.
Yep.
Your customer is oil and gas major company, right?
Yes, our customer are mainly oil and gas, but right now we expand more into customer who are doing carbon capture storage who may not be an oil and gas company. For example, there are a lot of Japanese companies like Itochu. They are mainly not oil and gas company, but they start to do CO2 injection into the aquifer or into the brine. As we know, Japan, there are not so many of reservoir, not so many of oil and gas reservoir, so they do CO2 injection into the brine. So we provide that kind of knowledge and solution. We go there, we educate what is the right tool to be used, what is the right technique that many of the other customer in Southeast Asia is using. So we do a lot of knowledge transfer between big company like Petronas, PTP, Pertamina, with a smaller company in the other region that may be quite new to the oil and gas. So we do a lot of technical exchange. So we are the enabler where we not only provide the right tool for the customer, a tool that is fast, that's easy to be used, that is fast to be run, to be simulated, and the world first integrated tool that integrate things like geomechanics, things like surface network, dynamic model, static model, all in one package. So you will not be able to find any application that exists in the market at the moment that has similar kind of capability. So we need to make sure that the industry are aware that this kind of tool exists in the market. It's easy, very easy for the customer to use it. And if not, we have a broad technical support to make sure that the customer are able to learn the application in the fastest manner and so that they can use the tool to run their project.
Rockflow Dynamics has rich history, more than 10 years.
Yes.
And you have 25 offices in the world.
Yeah, the number is growing.
The number is growing.
Yeah.
So could you explain your company's history a bit?
Yeah, we started as a European company, a company that started as a reservoir simulator. Reservoir simulator is basically a tool for numerical simulation to build simulation model that is essential in any oil and gas company. For example, if I'm the operator, I would like to put a well here. I want to produce oil and gas, but before I make the decision, I need to make sure that there is oil down here. But we can't see. We cannot see what's underneath the earth. Something is not something that I can observe, but we can update the well data, the seismic data, and we put it into an application to visualize it as a simulation model in 2D and 3D. And then it provide the dynamic data where it will provide the streamlines, the traces. We're able to observe the fluid flow, and this is the main usage of the application. It enables the engineer to see what's underneath their property. So it helps a lot of companies to make sure that whatever they drill, they put the money into the well, they are confident that there's oil and gas down there. So I think this is where where the origin of the application. So we started from a reservoir simulator, and today we grow beyond a user, beyond an application just for reservoir simulator, just for the reservoir engineer. Now geologists, they can use it to build a geological model. The PTech, they can use it to access the reservoir surveillance tool. They can connect it to the surface network to optimize the surface network facility, the sizing, the capacity. So it is now an integrated tool that can be used across the whole upstream industry, from geoscience, from the reservoir side to the PTech side. So it is a very important tool, and I think it's going to continue to increase the dominance in the upstream industry.
And so now your product, the new use case is for CCS.
Yes, exactly.
Project. After the many countries are going to net zero.
Yep, exactly. Almost every country right now, there has to be aligned with something called a COP, where they have to contribute to a certain level of carbon neutrality by certain years, let's say in Malaysia and in Thailand as well, which the company, the NOC for each of these country, which is PTP and Petronas, the carbon neutrality has to be achieved by 2015 or 2060. So which means what it means by then, by 2050, is that the amount of CO2 produced by the factory, by the industrialization, has to be balanced back with the CO2 that is being thrown away. So how do we get rid of CO2? We can produce less CO2 by having electric car, by having electrified vehicles, for maybe in the future there might be electrified aeroplane and helicopter, etc. But it will not be able to reduce the CO2 when CO2 is kept producing, right? So the solution is to capture the CO2 in the atmosphere or the sources from the factory, from the oil and gas field, re-inject back to the reservoir. So the place that you find oil and gas, you inject back the CO2. So this is what the aim for this FA is, for everyone to understand that the main contributor for carbon neutrality, the right solution is CO2 injection, or you can call it as carbon capture and storage. So this is the technique that is using at the moment. So the first project by PTP will be done in about 2026. For them to do it, they require a reservoir modeling tool like T Navigator to do it, because they would like to predict how much CO2 that can be injected. They want to mitigate the risk to avoid CO2 might seep through to the cap rock, they might seep through to the ocean, they might seep through the tectonic plate fault, So this is something that you need to understand and also to avoid. So the solution to this is to have a modeling tool, build the model, analyze the dynamic data. Thus, they can see what might be happen to their reservoir in the next 10, 50, or 100 years. So this is our objective of having a simulation tool in the CCS.
Right. As you mentioned, you have already Japanese clients.
Yes.
Actually, Japanese government just began to provide subsidies for CCS projects. I'd like to know your perspective of CCS market in Southeast Asia. It's just beginning, right? Or you can see the market is growing, right?
It is really growing. For example, in the last 5 years, there won't be any initiative for CCS 5 years ago. But today, we are going to have the very first few projects by Petronas PTP to do CO2 injection in the next 1 or 2 years' time. We look at a lot of presentation, we look at a lot of proposal by the government and by the national company that in the next 10 years, there will be 50 CO2 injection sites in Malaysia, in Thailand, and across Southeast Asia, in Indonesia as well. We just have to have the first few case studies as a benchmark. Once it's successful, a lot more is going to come. And in contrast to Japan, the structure of Japan might be a little different. It might be a bit difficult for CO2 injection in Japan. Why? It's because, first of all, there is not many, or maybe there is very minimal oil and gas reservoir in Japan. So the solution for CCS in Japan is they have to inject it into the water, into the groundwater. So the risk is higher. Why the risk is higher is because in the oil and gas reservoir here, we produce oil and gas. That reservoir itself is already a natural confinement where you inject the CO2, the chances for it to be leaked to the surrounding is way lower, because that is where it already stored oil and gas. But for Japan or Korea, the chances of they will have to do more risk analysis. So this is where T Navigator comes in, or any reservoir modeling, reservoir simulation comes in to mitigate the risk by doing a proper modeling. You do a dynamic modeling to see what might happen to the CO2 plume movement. So the reservoir simulation comes in, the reservoir engineer, the geologist, they can access where the CO2 might be moving to. They can see if the CO2 might be leakage from the groundwater to the ocean. So this is the main capability of the reservoir modeling tool. And on top of that, T Navigator being the world's fastest reservoir simulator, it becomes an advantage in terms of the speed. We collaborate with NVIDIA that allows T Navigator to be run on GPU CUDA core. That becomes even faster. So for example, if you are going to simulate CCS project, that takes about 100 years. Using conventional computing, we might make it into 1 hour into Navigator, but because it's powered by NVIDIA, our software are able to use these CUDA cores by NVIDIA. We can reduce the time to probably several minutes. So why is it important? Because the time is key. When one solution model takes only several minutes, the company are able to run hundreds of uncertainty cases. They can run a scenario of different injection pressure. They can run a scenario of maybe case A, case B, case C with a different scenario. Maybe the water is this property, maybe the water is high salinity, or maybe the structure is a bit more heterogeneity. There might be more fault, there might be some leakage here and there. So they can play with more scenario to come out with uncertainty analysis assessment and tell the management, this is the scenario ABC and this is the possible outcome, right? So this is where I believe Reservoir Simulator key is to be fast, easy for user to be used, and we provide the technical expertise to make sure that the user, whether in Japan or any in the Southeast Asia country, they understand the capability so that they can do their work in a fast manner.
Right, so I can see your core competence is modeling based on the geological data and user experience speed with collaborated with the NVIDIA and much experience about in this field.
Yes.
Right. It's a dynamic change. Can you catch up with the CCS team?
Yeah, it is a very fast dynamic changes. Those who are in CCS, we need to have the open-minded, including the technology provider.